Well, good evening. The observant amongst you will notice that this is not, in fact, Henley, where I'm going to be talking about the Henley Royal Regatta draw from, but it is, in fact, York City Centre with the Ouse flowing through, which is a great place to come rowing, and it's where I live. So having enjoyed a great few days down in Henley, I've taken the train ride home to crunch some numbers and be in a position to come and talk to you now on this fine, glorious Sunday evening about what the draw holds for us. Because we had a brilliant couple of days of qualifiers. Thank you very much indeed to the stewards and absolutely everybody who was involved in laying those on the impromptu two-day format, which is some of the highest stakes racing going in the UK. For many, it is the highlight of their year's rowing, is trying to get into Henley Royal Regatta. And if you've not been to have a look at it before, I recommend going to watch. I like the two-day format, I have to admit. And if you are going to go and watch it, make sure you spend your time between watching it both at Bankside, but also spend some time down in the boating enclosure where you can see the reactions of crews as they make it through or don't make it through. Hopefully more of them making it through, because it really is a great spectacle. Welcome to the third instalment of the rowing notebook for Henley Royal Regatta 2026. This is your informal reaction type video where we look at some of the themes emerging, review racing, embark in some towpath gossip, and generally embrace what is, a great sport in the United Kingdom. And of course, this time we're welcoming crews from across the world as well. So this is unstructured, it's unscripted. I literally have a notebook where I've been scribbling things down. And if you've ever watched Formula One, you'll have seen a chap called Ted Kravitz walking around the paddock doing much as what I'm about to go and do, because I've unashamedly ripped off his format. So the draw happened yesterday, and rather than happening in the town hall, it happened on the balcony in the regatta enclosure. I quite like that format as well, I have to admit. I love the town hall draw, don't get me wrong, but I really like the format yesterday as well. So I'm not sure if that was planned all along, or if that was another reaction to having to change the format because of the weather, but it worked nevertheless. And the draw is kind of important, right? Because it tells us who's racing who, how things are likely to pan out now that we've had all the season of racing and a chance to think about who are the form crews, etc. But also, because this is side-by-side gladiatorial two crews between the booms, it's a very, very different format to the multi-lane. So the way that race tactics can be borne out, the way that different crews handle the pressure of being side by side and enclosed within big wooden booms, not just buoy lines, is quite telling, as can be how they react to the proximity of the crowd. If you go up to some points on the course, they are right on top of you, and it can be a very different experience to rowing down the middle lanes at Dorney, Strathclyde Park, Homepierre Point, or wherever else you've been doing training up until this point. So today I'm going to get the crystal ball out, dust it off, see how accurate it is, and I'm sure that you will be making plenty comments down below telling me how wrong or right I've got it when it comes to what's taking shape in the draw, and also where to pay attention, because when racing starts, I've got some highlights for you on the first round that if I were you, I would tune in on the live stream or get Bankside, put down your jug of Pimm's, get Bankside and watch it, because there are going to be some good races in the first couple of rounds. The focus on this really is on the club and intermediate events. The premier events, well, they really only get going at the weekend, right? The draw is such that there are quite a few, shall we say, gaps in the standard through the earlier rounds. That's not to say that there might not be some great racing. We all remember the Kingslayer race when Drysdale got his scalp taken down and there will always be races like that every now and then, but I can't spot any in the draw at the moment. But no one saw that one either. So let's make a kick-off. Let's start looking first of all at the junior events. The junior events are pretty fantastic to watch. Don't mistake this for casual schoolboy and schoolgirl sport. These guys are pretty exceptional athletes in their own right, and the rowing programs that they're running at these schools now are chuffing advanced. If you want to look at just how deliberately they are planned, how much effort goes on, not just on the water but off the water, have a look at, well, the two I'm sort of just in awe of really are Ryan Demain at Headington. What he does off the water in athlete development really is remarkable, and there's a reason Headington is churning out such remarkable young women who go on to achieve great things at university and beyond. And also Mark Wilkinson at Windsor Boys School. Those two coaches have been responsible for building programs which have been resilient, standing the test of time, churning out great athletes and healthy athletes for a long period of time also. So it is great to see those two programs back, and junior rowing in general, because it is pretty spectacular. Let's kick off with the Diamond Jubilee, which is for junior women's quads. Round one is kind of like the battle of the qualifiers, and then round two is when the seeded crews and the pre-qualified crews kind of come into their own. In general, I think the draw, it still makes it very hard to look past Marlow. They are a standout performance crew from across the board, but there are a couple of good round one fixtures I encourage you to tune in for. Yarm and Scullers B, and Sydney and Marlow B. I think the Yarm and the Scullers B crew, I think they're relatively close matched. So whilst they're both qualifiers, it should be a good close race. It should be a good close race. And that Yarm crew, a couple of younger athletes coming through it as well. So good to see them between the booms. And then the other fixture was Sydney against Marlow B. Marlow A, who I've mentioned, are very strong, and I'm very interested to see how Marlow B can stand up against the programme that is Sydney, but also to have a look at what the next generation of Marlow junior women's scullers looks like. Pete Chambers is running a stonking programme there, and it will be great to see if not only has he generated an outstanding crew this year, but has he also got that fine art of having depth and feed through from subsequent years as well. Apart from those two fixtures tomorrow, in the first round, I suspect it will likely go the form book through to the quarter-final, because the draw has spread the sort of big hitters quite evenly. So I'm anticipating the quarter-finals to be Los Gatos and Wycliffe, which will be one to watch, Shrewsbury and Tideway Scullers A, and I suspect Scullers will go through from that, and that's the top half of the draw. Marlow and Hartpury, which I would anticipate Marlow winning. Perkins and Maidenhead, which I anticipate Perkins winning, and that would set up quite a compelling semi-final, but ultimately I think it would lead, I think it's all roads kind of lead to a Marlow victory, unless the Los Gatos entity has some super secret speed that we're currently unaware of. But there we go. So that's my review of the Diamond Jubilee draw. Let's bounce on now from women's to men's junior sculling. If you're in the top half of the draw, it's pretty savage. Let's be very clear. The top half of the draw contains Sir William Boleys, Windsor Boys School and Leander Club, all of whom have won at, let me get this right, Boleys won at Wallingford, Windsor Boys won at National Schools, Leander Club won at Marlow. So they've all had a chance, and I think they've all got a chance as well. But they're all in the top half of the draw. In the bottom half of the draw, I think there's a route for Hartpury through to the semi-final, certainly. But they've got to get past Marlow A on the way there. I think these two crews I don't think either up there with the Borlases, the Windsor Boys, the Leanders, etc. this year, or the Tideway Scullers School are also in the second half, the lower half of the draw, alongside Hartpury and Marloway. But what I do think is that they're quite closely matched. And I think also Hartpury have been on a bit of a trajectory. They stepped out of the quad for Nat Schools and went into the single and the double, which they won the double and medalled in the single. So they have good individual athletes. They haven't transferred the speed they've got in those smaller boats into the quad yet, but I was out this morning for a bit of a run and I saw the quad out paddling and they looked much more relaxed than I've seen them in a long time. So I wonder if that unit has now come together in the way that we were anticipating it, and they will now have a bit more speed in their back pocket that would see them go through Marlow. Nevertheless, I think that will be an interesting fixture when it comes through. Post quarter final, I think it's really anyone's guess as to who's going to feature. You've got that savage top half of the draw. Through the bottom half of the draw, I do think Tideway Scullers will come through in some way, shape or form through to the final. But apart from that, it really is a bit tricky. In terms of stuff to watch tomorrow, I think I would tune in at 7 o'clock to watch Los Gatos B against Clare's Court. I'd be interested to see if Clare's Court can turn them over. I think they'll be able to. But apart from that, I think day one's likely to be business as usual. Going to focus in on the Prince Philip now, which is junior women's eights. And we've got some stonking programmes in that draw. I have mentioned yesterday the situation with St Edwards and what I believe has been some selection dramas because they have brought some athletes in on a scholarship last minute, which might invalidate their national schools result, which did result in them not racing at Women's Henley, and I'm still unclear what the implications are for the lineup at Henley Royal Regatta. I anticipate they're going to race, but will it be with these three individuals who they've brought in, or will they be forced to change the lineup? If you know, comment below and spread the word. But as I said yesterday, it is a subject of some consternation on the towpath that this apparent skullduggery seems to have been going on. And if indeed it has, then I'm sure the stewards will call that out. In the top half of the draw, Teddies and Shiplake feature.
Hey YouTube.
Hey YouTube, yes indeed. So yeah, Teddies and Shiplake in the top half of the draw, so possible quarterfinal there. Headington and the Form UK in the bottom half of the draw. And I think it's sort of a question about how that combination is likely to come together in some way. I do think TBC Racing in the first round could set up an interesting race against St Edwards in the second round. St Edwards are in the second round, they've gone through. TBC are racing on the first day. If they're successful in that, they will then face St Edwards. TBC were certainly looked to be one of the faster qualifiers, so I wonder if there is a different St Edwards 8 racing, if that means that the pace might not be what we saw at national schools, and therefore whether TBC might be putting their hand in the fire and able to turn them over. It'll be interesting to see. Elsewhere in the bottom half, a couple of interesting fixtures. Deerfield versus Latimer, and then Green Lake versus Sir William Perkins are anticipated fixtures if the draw goes the way I suspect it will. So in general, I think it's coming together to look like Headington and Shiplake will see each other again in the final this year, assuming everything goes the way we think it will, but there's going to be some great racing along the way. PE, well, tune in tomorrow at 2:20 in the afternoon, because you'll get to see Radley go down the track for the first time, and they are definitely the form crew coming into this. So good is the programme, in fact, that Radley, alongside St Paul's, have qualified their second eights for the Temple Challenge Cup, because you're only allowed to enter 1 8, your top 8, in the PE. And it is a very good top 8 that Radley has this year, and watching them paddling up and down the river these last couple of days, they are chuffing focused on converting that nice paddling into top speed. They're facing the Belsen Jesuit College from the United States in the first round. Radley should go through them, but Americans like to row 8s, so you never know. But it'll be good to see what Radley turn up looking like. I anticipate it'll be the drilled centre of excellence that Patrick Duggan has been focused on generating. I'd also tune in at 3:20 to watch Los Gatos and Windsor Boys, just really for the novelty value of watching these two programmes who usually race each other with 2 oars, now racing each other in sweep events as well. Windsor Boys no slouches in the 8s event, so let's see what can happen there. I suspect Los Gatos will go through, but it should be a good race because Windsor Boys love it between the booms. In the bottom half of the draw, interesting first round fixture is Bedford versus Eton. Eton have slowly been redeveloping after a couple of years in the doldrums. Well, doldrums is perhaps unfair, but certainly not at the level they have been in the past. And Bedford continue to be, I think it would be fair to say, the lower end of the top tier, certainly of the pre-qualified and seeded crews. So I think there is the potential here for those 2 8s to come together in a great race of note. That's at 12:10 on day 1. And I think of the fixtures I've mentioned, I would suggest Bedford versus Eton will be the one to watch. I think it could go either way, and either way, a big name, a name of note, will be going out quite early on. Moving now into a bit more of a rapid fire, because I think the junior events are where a lot of the first round stuff is first and foremost, and also where some of the possible draw patterns are a bit more obvious. But in the island, strong entry, really strong entry, and I think some of the best racing of the whole regatta is likely to be in the women's 8s, both in the island and the bridge. I would look at Nottingham versus Edinburgh University Boat Club B. Edinburgh University women having a strong year, Nottingham having a strong year. I suspect it will be Edinburgh. Sorry, I suspect it will be one of them, but that will be one to watch. In the Temple, I just think it will be form book in the first round. There are a number of very strong programs. They have been seeded, they have been put in the draw in such a way that I don't anticipate there being any big first round exits. In the Wargrave for women's 8s, I suspect the first round is quite open, and so the opposite of the Temple really, because the seeds don't come until a little bit later on. So I think there'll be good racing quite early on in that event. But from Friday onwards, that's when we see really the big guns going head to head. And before Friday, it'll sort of be the tier 2, tier 3 clubs tussles. So good racing, but not necessarily the great rowing that we will see from Friday onwards. In the visitors, I suspect we are heading towards a Nautilus A Leander Club final, but there is a probable Dutch under 20, I think it's an under 23 crew, and Leander Club semi-final, which will be a very good race along the way. I really like the visitors. I think it's a great event, and we'll see some aspiring future GB internationals going down the track in that, I'm absolutely sure. That's what Nautilus are. Nautilus are kind of the returning GB eligible athletes who are based in the US on scholarships out there. So they're not bad, and neither are Leander Club. In the Thames at 11:25, there is a heck of a match between Thames A and Avon from New Zealand. Avon they came over a couple of years ago and had to go through qualifiers. They were a bit of a form crew from New Zealand. They'd posted some fast times before coming over for the regatta, but the stewards put them through qualifiers nevertheless, and they got through a couple of rounds before getting put out by, I think it was the eventual winners, Leander. And this year they've drawn Thames in the first round. You don't get on a plane and come all the way from New Zealand to go down without a fight, and I suspect that there will be some Kiwi power going down between the booms, trying to cause a bit of an upset. I think Thames are probably going to prove too good for them, but watch a bit of a gladiatorial match in round 1 at 11:25 on day 1. Elsewhere, sort of like rapid fire, if you look at the Thames, I think it will, apart from what I've just spoken about, it will be by the book. Wyfold and Brit as well. Race of note in the Wyfold, St Andrew A versus St Andrew B. I bet you they're delighted with that fixture. In the Danesfield, I think, again, it's just a case of seeing who comes up against Leander in the final. And in the Princess of Wales, I think round 1 will kind of be going by the form book as well. In the Diamond Challenge Sculls, it's largely going to hot up Premier event towards the weekend. But I do think of note is Mr. Moore of Cambridge. He went down the track in both the double sculls, which he qualified for, and the single scull, which he qualified for. So 2 qualifications in one night. Well done to him. And he looked pretty dynamic. If he makes it through the first round fixture, that sets him up with a race against Mr. Zeidler, the form sculler in the world right now. And I bet you he will really, really want to take that race on. That will be pretty spectacular. Right, let's look back for a moment on the Prince of Wales, which I think is another draw just to have spend a moment on looking at. Because in many ways I may have saved the best till last. I think there's going to be stonking racing from the off. It doesn't start until a little bit later, so we're not going to see it on day 1. I think it starts on the Wednesday, might be the Thursday. Someone tell me, it's one of those days, I can't remember. But anyway, I think it's going to be really good. And the top half, you've got a bit of a punchy, it's not punchy, it's just a shame, I think, for Reading B, who have drawn Leander. I think Leander are going to be the winners in that fair, and I hope Reading B don't take that the wrong way. I think it's just a recognition of how strong Leander are, but I think it will be a bit of an unjust early exit for that Reading B crew, who did well at Marlow, and I think were unfortunate not to pre-qualify, particularly given the under-21 combination, which I will mention in a minute. But I think the upshot of how the top half of the draw will pan out is that it'll be a Skoll Leander Club semi-final, and that will be a punchy race to follow. In the bottom half of the draw, in round 1, will be an interesting race between Nautilus, Edinburgh Composite. So that's your kind of under-23 combo. And then Windsorian and Marlow. Windsorian being Windsor Boys Old Boys, easy for you to say, with a Marlow chap in there. And that crew went through qualifiers looking like a very, very good unit. And it's sort of like the Windsor Boys All-Stars in many ways. So I think it's Joe Wellington sitting at stroke, who is a Princeton athlete now. Last year was in the single at the Junior World Championships, where he finished in the B final. So he's not a slow guy in his own right. And he won the Foley last year as well. So, and there's plenty of Foley winners who have come through Windsor Boys School, so they know how to move quads. So I think that will be an interesting fixture. The other interesting fixture, I think, will be the under-21 combination, which is racing as Leeds and Leander. It's actually Leeds, Leander, Durham Boat Club, Durham Amateur Rowing Club, and Molesey Boat Club. It's got 2 under 21s on board and then 2 under 18s on board. I think it's really good to see them doing this because you've got a number of athletes there who could do with a bit of time in competitive, punchy crew boats. And I'm going to mention specifically Quinn Molesley from Durham, who has been a really standout sculler in the singles for a number of years, but hasn't yet been able to translate his individual pace into an outstanding crew boat performance. Experiences like this are critical in helping people like him, who are standout athletes in their own club, but don't necessarily have standout crewmates to row with as well, to come through and ideally represent GB and strengthen the GB team. So I'm delighted to see it happen. However, they were pre-qualified, and the first time they were on the water was on Friday. So they are up against Reading Sea. I don't believe that Reading Sea have the horsepower, the raw horsepower, to beat the composite. However, they've certainly got the experience in quad boat rowing that the composite boat lack. And I think it will be interesting to see how that pans out between the booms. I think it could go either way. Because the Reading crew, with the coherence, the well-drilled, they are used to the Henley stretch. The Reading now having a boating location at the Henley Business School, and they're probably more of a unit, so their response to the pressure of the situation will be telling. So tune in for that one. We don't have a race time for it yet, because it's on one of the later days, Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember. Aren't I good at this? But there we are. I think just a couple of other biggies to look at tomorrow, just plucking them out of the draw. In the Diamond Jubilee, I've mentioned, I didn't mention, but George Heriot's School and Clare's Court at 9:45. At 10:15, George Watson's College race Los Gatos in the Folly. I think it'll be an early exit for George Watson's College, which is unfortunate in many ways because that's quite a good, strong domestic unit. But I suspect the Los Gatos guys are just too strong. So more to follow in the days to come, but having watched the draw, having looked at how things could pan out, that's kind of like where I'm thinking with stuff. I hope that's been enjoyable. Tell me what you think below. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on whether Henley really is that much of a unique environment, or am I over-egging it? Does it not really matter if you're between the booms or between some floaty boys? Or is it just the same stuff? I mean, obviously the fundamentals is the same. Blades in, blades come out, push hard. But is it the pressure of the situation different? I certainly find it when I've raced there. But maybe that's why I never won at Henley. And I'm sure there are plenty of Henley winners on this that will tell me the correct way to do it. My aim is going to be to do a notebook at the end of every day. I'm teasing apart some of the top races and maybe having a chance to look at some technical analysis. If you see there's something that you think I should be looking at, drop me a message and I'll try and pick it up and have a look at it. I am, however, going to be doing it remotely because I've got my family up in Yorkshire and I'm spending the week up here fixed to the live stream, as well, of course, as doing my day job around that. But then I will aim to get back down to the hallowed waters of Henley on Saturday and Sunday. So anticipate a notebook being filmed after racing on Saturday as I make a swift exit for the train station, because no one wants to be in Henley on Saturday night because the werewolves come out. And then a nice day on Sunday with finals, red boxes aplenty, and then we'll see if any of my predictions were right or if I've been talking absolute codswallop. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for Qualifiers Weekend. Enjoy drawing breath for a couple of days, and we'll see you soon.